yes ma'am and no ma'am,
Deborah.
and they just got on me.
They
about-
don't say that.
No,
No,
you had to say
that's
yes,
country.
yes
Watch
or
your
no.
fingers. Hold it like that.
Didn't say no,
We
yes
get all
ma'am.
three of
They
them.
did that in California. That's what my mama was.
Yeah, we never said
Because
yes,
it
ma'am,
makes
and
it
no,
seem
ma'am.
like you're older.
Yeah.
People tell me,
I always say yes, ma'am.
"Hey,
I don't
you
see
say
all of
yes,
them.
ma'am to me, and I just get the That does make you feel old.
And I always say yes ma'am. I don't care if they
Me
young
too,
or
me
old.
too, me too.
It's just a habit.
I mean, if you're respectful, you want to do, I expect that. You know what I'm saying?
Out of respect,
That's
because
what I do.
It kills my
That's the way
nerves
we
if I
were
call it
raised.
ma'am.
That's the way we were raised.
Come over here.
And that's why, and I had to catch myself. How could I talk to her without saying yes, ma'am?
Because that's all you know.
And right, I told her I was 18, had never been out of Durham before, and I never liked New York. Oh, I couldn't stand it.
Because they love to look young.
That's because you used to hear bad things about it.
That's we
No?
didn't know anything about New York.
Oh, okay.
Except for people. All I ever heard about New York was the way people lived up there, but they had a Cadillac parked in front of their apartment. I would always hear that. And if you went to Harlem, that's the way it was. Because I went there with my sister-in-law.
Okay.
But I did not like New York. And these spike heels that these girls are wearing now, we were wearing them back then.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So I thought I was grown, getting on that Greyhound.
But they
And my
weren't
mom
quite
said,
high.
don't you wear them heels. Honey, I'm grown. I'm put my heels on and go. Put them on. When that bus stopped in Richmond, couldn't get off the bus. I turned it some kind of way. Yeah, I was swollen, couldn't move. I said, Lord, I wish I'd have listened to my mom.
I know it.
And then she knew I was pregnant when I left, so she said, now when you go in that hospital, don't you go in there hollering like you're crazy, girl. It ain't gonna do nothing but make that baby go back up in there, cause it ain't gonna come out like it went in. I didn't know what she was talking about. I said, how she know? I didn't know what she was talking about. Girl, the labor pains came. I got to that hospital, and what did I do? I started hollering. Oh, look, girl, got up on the rail. Back then, they didn't have the monitor, and that nurse would come to see how far. Girl, I'm up on the rail. Miss Twine, please come down. Oh, Lord, that person, girl, I hollered. It was so horrible. I said, I don't want to go through that again. So when he came back from Vietnam, and I got pregnant right away, I just dreaded it so much because I knew what I was going to have to go through. But it wasn't as bad with the second one because the first one I just ate like a whole girl.
Well, you didn't know what to expect either with the first
That
one.
doctor told me, he said, Miss Twine, you come in here next week with your ankle swollen. Because my mother-in-law was a heavy salt user. Oh, she would salt you down in a minute. And I said to myself, you won't see me next week because I'm not coming. And I went in that Sunday night. But with the second one, it wasn't so bad. But I just didn't want no more children, honey. It was just so painful.
So you have 2 kids now?
I had 2 daughters, one of them passed. So when they came out with getting your tubes tied, I went running to the doctor. Husband had to sign. Oh, he wasn't going to sign my paper. If he wanted to get tied up, I didn't have to sign his. So I was over in Germany when they fought so the men wouldn't have to sign for them. And I happened to be working at the hospital at that time. And I got the doctor and I said, honey, I don't care, tie it, sew it, burn it, anything you can do, because I don't want no more children. And I went in and had it done. I thought I was going to die. Because the laparoscope that they go through the navel, it wasn't working, and he did the surgery. I thought I was going to die.
What year was this?
Girl, I don't know. Let me see.
That'd be the 60s.
It was in the 60s, yeah, because about 65, later than 65, because I got married in 64. So it had to be about 7 or 8 years past that. You remember when we wanted that done, and the husbands had to sign for you to get your tubes tied? But the women got out there and fought for it that.
But that was in the 70s.
Well, that's when I had it done. They got out there to fight for it that the man shouldn't have to sign. We didn't have to sign for them, which a lot of them went and had it done, and the wives probably didn't know anything about it. But I got it done, and I thank the Lord for that, because If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't birth no child.
That's what my supervisor.
I would adopt one. I would never go through that.
See, mine was easy.
I would
They just
never.
shot right out. Pew.
And then after I suffered for so long, when it got close to the term, that's when they gave me the saddle block. Well, after that, I was good to go. Because it was just like getting a tooth pulled. Oh, here she is. But before that, I would never do that again.
And different people,
Never.
some people in labor 8, 10, 12, 20
I
hours.
don't see how they can do it.
I
And some of them have died from giving birth. And I
Right.
see how. Because it
Yeah,
is
the blood pressure.
They say you're on your deathbed. They always say you're on
I
your
stayed
deathbed
on
when
him
you're
for
giving
14
birth.
years before I got my tubes tied.
That's
I
why
said
that
I-
was so important.
And he was very.
You hear that,
abusive,
Kashayla?
and
No
I didn't
babies.
Want no more children.
I talked to all
It
the
ain't
ladies.
easy. It ain't easy.
I would never do it.
And even after they come, they're not easy.
Honey, it's not
Well,
easy.
it's only
Because
if you're married.
Yeah,
it's
only if
not-
you-
Yeah,
wait
that's
till you get married. And even when you get married,
To the right
it
person.
still ain't easy.
Well,
It's not
it
easy.
doesn't matter married.
It could be.
How many did you have?
I have two.
Some people labor overseas.
But my supervisor was telling me yesterday that she and her husband had their first child, and it was some years later when she had a second one. But she didn't know she was pregnant because she was on birth control. And I said, well, there was a lady that worked here who was on birth control, but because she ended up on antibiotics, she ended up getting pregnant too. She said, and that's exactly what happened. So she said when she called her husband, and after she went to the doctor and said, we have a problem.
We have
So she said he went and got snip because he didn't want that problem anymore. So they have two boys now.
Wow.
They're pretty old though.
Well, I told that doctor to do whatever you do. I don't want any more. He said, well, suppose you would get divorced and remarry. I said, well, I won't be having no kids by no other man. I'm just completely through. I could not go through that again.
Yeah, find somebody
But
who
they
already
say
has
the
their
more-
own kids.
Well, if I had to find somebody, first thing I ask, do you have children? And if he said yes, I'm going the other way. Because I've been through that with my husband and his children.
I think that happened with
That's the
my
first
grandmother's
thing I would
baby
ask,
sister.
do you have children? I prefer, I really don't want no more. Because see, this husband, I married him twice, but I wouldn't do that. The first husband, I was with him for 27 years, and boy,
Wow, that was a long
was he
time.
mean and abusive. But back then, they didn't have anything like they have for women when they're
They
abusive
didn't
now.
have the law.
You know, they felt you beat your wife, that's what you're supposed to do. You know, and
Yeah, that's what happened. Let me tell you a story about my grandma and beating wives. My grandma didn't play. She was a little bitty short woman, but she didn't play. She had this husband. She was married like 3 times. Never divorced. She said that was the white man's way of getting extra money. She had this one husband, and she said, because we lived in a mobile home, and he come in, she said when he came in walking hard, she knew he was ready to fight, so she got prepared, and she mentally got prepared.
Oh, my
And so this one time, I remember this one time, she threw the iron at him.
wow.
She hit him, those gas stoves that you have with those little heavy things. She hit him side the head. She hit him side the head with that blood went everywhere. And one time she threw hot black eyed peas on him,
Oh my gosh.
and he was still there. And so this one time when she threw the iron at him, and he didn't want to leave. He loved his cars now. She threw it, and he didn't want to leave. So he called the police, right? The police.
He called police.
He called the police. So the police came and said, ma'am. She said, well, ma'am, this is a family affair. And Grandma said, when I kill him, that's going to be a family affair. You better not take me to jail. So he said, sir, I think you better leave. She did not play. She was not. She was raised with, there was 14 of them. So it was 10 brothers and 4 sisters.
She like Sophia.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
My life, I had to
And then they were
my cousins, my brothers.
And they were born in Georgia.
Lord knows I do. But I'm killing it.
That's right. She'll kill them dead.
Before I let it
really had to
beat me.
fight.
Yes.
But some women are fighters. I wish I would have been that way. My mother used to talk and say, "Oh, John would never hit me. Oh no, this and that." So when he came back from Vietnam and we down at Fort Bragg and we get to arguing and he had hit me and I'm gonna hit him back. And when I raised my hand, he said, "If you do, I'll kill you." Well, what was I supposed
Right.
to do? I didn't want to die.
Believe him.
I
Believe
believe. And see, he was in special forces. He was trained to kill.
Right.
And he had just gotten back from Vietnam.
That was a little.
And you think I would hit him? I didn't want to die that way. And I lived with him for 27 years in fear. Yes, Sam Twine. I was telling you when I lived with you.
Well, my grandma, like, I think
feared
all
him
four.
very- If I couldn't talk back to him, if I did, I'd end up on the floor. I mean, he was very abusive. I was scared of him, and my children was too.
Right.
And I never thought that I would get away from him. But how I got away when he retired from the service, and always told him I didn't want to live in New York. Well, he didn't want to live in Durham, so I said, well, I'm going to Durham, so if you want me, you'll know where to come. He never came.
It was that easy.
I didn't.
If you know it had been that easy, you would have left.
I would have, but actually, after I left and came, after I had been here a few weeks, when I met the second husband, and him and I was talking, he did come in. But when he saw that I was with someone, he went on and left out of Durham. He came in on the train, and I tell you, that's been years ago. And every time I hear that train whistle, I just panic. Is that him? Is that him? But he's paying for it because you name the illness, and he's got it. Takes about 15 to 20 pills a day. Everything is wrong with him. But look at me, honey. Nothing wrong with me. I don't take no medication. Nothing. Just little brain damage.
From his abuse. From his abuse.
But other,
But I tell you,
I know you can't put all that brain damage on face.
I'll say he did 99% of it.
They say because if you were born a Roberts, part of that was
Yeah,
hereditary.
but look.
They say no Roberts, we go to insane asylums, but we don't go to prisons.
Val, he did 99% of the damage. He did 99%.
But don't put that other 1% on him.
But he was very abusive, girl. I couldn't talk back to honey, he'd come in the door, I'd just be so scared. And I just...
but I think all of my grandma's sisters were like that, except the baby girl. She just left home at 18 and never turned around until she was,
Wow.
she was 50 years later. She came back, and of course her mom was dead, father was dead, and she came back to Cocoa, where her two sisters were, who were still alive. She died like 2 years after she got back.
Oh, wow.
But she had a husband, I think, well, stepchildren, like your stepchildren. But she never had children at all.
Oh, okay.
And I think they just took everything. She let them just take everything. She just walked away.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to
My
walk away.
Aunt Lula Mae, the oldest girl that they had, my Aunt Lula Mae, what Grandma say, Aunt Lula Mae bit off a man's tip of his nose. And spit it out and say, let the ants eat it.
Well, you
No
know,
women didn't play. You hear me?
Oh,
And
my
Maggie ran her husband down the street shooting at him.
look, I wish I'd have been in your family.
He became a preacher, and she said she heard him on the radio. After he became a preacher, the Lord will change you even if it takes shooting at you. He's still alive though. I saw him the other day.
I wish I'd have been in your family, honey.
Grandma said when she was younger, she had a boyfriend, right? This was while she was in Georgia. This guy, apparently he was a beater too. I don't know, somehow she had these men that like to beat. So she fought him. She fought him. And he called the police on her too. The police came and got her, put her in the car, and it was taking her to jail, right? And she said the police, it was 2 white police officers said, like, we should take you in because they lived in the woods. Pull on the side of the road and beat you and leave you here. Grandma said she told them, pull over. Yes, pull over. I said pull over.
I bet they kept going.
She wasn't scared.
Some women are just like that, you know.
And I think a lot like us, I think we have it in there. But if I hadn't become a Jehovah's Witness, I think I would have. It'll come out a little bit more.
Well, I wasn't saved then, and as the time moved on and the children got grown, we got a little older, so the physical abuse stopped, but the verbal abuse started coming in.
That's the worst.
And I wanted to get 2 knives in my hand while he was asleep. I wanted to straddle him and just cut his heart out. And that's when I made the decision, it's time for me to go, you know. And that's when I left and told him I was, you know, going to Durham because I really wanted to kill him. I did.
I have a cousin. I got a story about that too. Grandmama's nephews was in Cocoa, and him and his woman was married, right? And apparently he used to beat her.
Yeah.
And so she said, "You better not go to sleep tonight." Mama told me this story. You better not go to sleep tonight. I'll kill you. So every time she moved, he said, "I ain't sleeping yet."
Even though she meant business.
She was tired of it.
Well, I wasn't even able to threaten him because I couldn't talk back to him. I couldn't say anything to him.
Yeah.
He gave that.
They had some funny stories.
Then when the Army said, after you've been married, I think it's about 10 years, then that wife can apply, you know, get half of the check. Well, we were still married and he was still active duty. So when that came out, he said, if you do, your first check will be your last check. Because I'll be standing over there across the street, you know, in front of my mama's house. And I believed him. So when I was going,
That would have been his last check.
when I was with the second husband and we went to go get the divorce, and the lawyer said, well, Mrs. Twine, we can go out on and get this paperwork done and you can get half of this check. I said, no, I'll do that later on. I didn't want to go into details to let him know that I was afraid because it would have been my last check. You mess with a black man's money, you are dead. But I'm waiting on him to get in the ground because I'm going to get that Social Security. You know,
He's still living?
He's still living. But they keep telling me I can go get something now, but I don't want to mess with it while he's living. If he, you know, if I outlive him, the day they put him in the ground, I'm going to Social Security the next day. I spent 20, no, coon like that. He wouldn't be married. Other women wouldn't be like I was. Oh, he'd be dead. Oh, he would be dead. He could never do a woman the way that he did.
And plus he got older now, he can't do what he
He's
used to
all
do.
right because the knees are bad.
And you know what?
the
I think some of
hips.
your men, they look for vulnerable women.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the time. But like you say, when you say I'm gonna leave you with the kids, them white people trying to kill you.
And
Like
you know what he told me?
that bad.
When I used to tell him that I was going to leave, he said, ain't no judge going to make me take care of you and these kids because I got a place for y'all to stay. Well, I didn't know any better. So I stayed there.
And you know what? Some of them kill them because they know if the wife leave, they're gonna have to pay money. So
Right,
they
they're
tell
gonna
them, oh, I killed her because I don't want to get my money.
Right, and that's what men are doing now. They're really, they just killing women and children so fast. I'd be scared to hook up with somebody. They are really killing our women and children. Yeah, it's just really sad. But they are sick.
Very sick.
You know, they've always been sick. To me, they have, you know, I just, man is just weak and sick and hate to give love. They refuse to give a woman love. If you ever say, because when
It's hard for them, and
they don't know how.
That's why the Bible tells them to love their wife because they don't know